Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So Strixhaven spoiler season has finally begun, and of course that means quick take season is here as well. And the first quick take is going to be on Adrix and Nev Twincasters, and this one I'm calling Double Trouble for a couple of reasons, and you'll see all of them here in a bit. Again, with these quick takes, my apologies if I make a mistake or if I misspeak. I'm trying to give you my quick reactions to these cards as quickly as I can, so I'm bound to make some mistakes. And with all that said, let's jump into it. So Adrix and Nev Twincasters are a 2/2 Merfolk Wizard for 2 green-blue. They have Ward 2, which is a new keyword, but something that we've seen before. It means whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or an ability an opponent controls, countered unless that player pays 2. And they also have if one or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. So let's tackle Ward first. Now, although Ward 2 is not nearly as good as Hexproof, it is still fantastic protection. If your opponents don't have enough mana to actually target your commander with their spell, they're going to have to use that spell elsewhere or save it for later. Or even if they do have enough mana, usually that tax is going to be enough to actually deter them from targeting them anyways. But of course, the actual reason that a lot of players are going to be excited about this commander is that second part. This is a token doubler on a commander. And to my knowledge, we haven't seen that yet, aside from maybe one that can activate an ability to double tokens. This one just straight up gives you twice as many tokens whenever you're gonna create them. So it's kind of like a Parallel Lives that also just happens to protect itself like a Frost Titan type effect. And also, like Parallel Lives, keep in mind that this counts all tokens, not just creature tokens. So there are a lot of different directions that you can take a deck built around this commander, and there's a lot of exciting things that you can do with it. So without further ado, let's jump into some of the cards that you might want to consider when building around this commander. So let's start with the obvious. Things like Avenger of Zendikar that create a massive amount of creature tokens are going to be really good with this kind of a commander. Avenger of Zendikar says when it enters the battlefield, you create a 0/1 green plant creature token for each land under your control. So now, for example, let's say that you've got 7 lands in play, that would be 7 tokens normally, which is still a lot. But with Adrix and Nev in play, that's going to be 14 instead, so yeah, you've got your massive plant army. Well, technically they're not massive yet, but as soon as you start playing even more lands, you get ++1 counters on them, and they get even bigger, and so on and so forth. Regardless, there are a good amount of creatures out there that make multiple tokens when they come in, like Avenger of Zendikar or Save Mere Battlesphere, so definitely consider those. But you also might want to consider some creatures that actually make other creatures when they die. For example, Reefworm says, when it dies, create a 3/3 blue fish creature token with. When this creature dies, create a 6/6 blue whale creature token with. When this creature dies, create a 9/9 blue kraken creature token. So this just multiplies each time. When this dies, you get 2 fish. And then when your 2 fish die, you get 4 whales. And then when your 4 whales die, you get 8 9/9 krakens. So yeah, that's pretty valuable for a 4-mana card. Another option might be Mitotic Slime, which gives you a ton of oozes. When it dies, you get 2 2/2 green ooze creature tokens with. When this creature is put into a graveyard, put 2 1/1 green ooze creature tokens onto the battlefield. So to start off, instead of getting 2 of those 2/2s, you get 4. And you're seeing where this is going, and things get out of hand really quickly. Another kind of card to consider is something like Mimic Vat. It has imprint. Whenever a non-token creature dies, you may exile that card. If you do, return each other card exiled with Mimic Vat to its owner's graveyard. Then by paying 3 and tapping it, you create a token that's a copy of a card exiled with Mimic Vat. It gains haste, exile at the beginning of the next end step. Basically, you're making a copy of something that died, but again, with your commander in play, you get 2 copies of that. So that can be absolutely huge with other cards in this deck, like say Avenger of Zendikar. Getting 2 copies of that into play is pretty brutal. You're getting 2 copies, which gets double the tokens, and yeah, lots of math and tokens involved. And speaking of fun times with tokens, let's talk about Scoot Swarm and Rampaging Baloths. Scoot Swarm says whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. So now getting 2 1/1s instead of just 1, well, that's good value. But if you control 6 or more lands, create a token that's a copy of Scoot Swarm instead. Yeah, in a Simic deck, it's going to be very easy for you to meet that requirement. And then once you do with that next landfall trigger, you get 2 more copies of Scoot Swarm. And then you've got 3 Scoot Swarms in play, so with the next trigger, you get 6 more. And then next time you get 18 more, and you see where this is going. I'm no expert in math, but mathematicians out there, correct me in the comments below, but I believe that's an exponential curve. Or you could just, stick to something that's a little more simple, like Rampaging Baloths. It has Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may create a 4/4 green beast creature token. So you still get 2 beasts instead of 1, and that's still a lot of good value and a lot simpler than Scoot Swarm. But this commander is also going to be huge for upkeep triggers that create tokens. For example, Tendershoot Dryad has Ascend, and at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 green Saproling creature token. Saprolings you control get +2/+2 as long as you've got the city's blessing. So now instead of getting 1 Saproling each upkeep, you're getting 2. So every time around the table, you're getting 8 Saproling creature tokens. And yeah, getting the city's blessing with that is gonna be no problem. So these are all gonna be 3/3 tokens, and that's 24 power in total for just 1 trip around the table. And speaking of 3/3s and 24 power, how about Koma Cosmos Serpent? Koma has at the beginning of each upkeep, create a 3/3 blue serpent creature token named Koma's Coil. And sacrifice another serpent, choose 1, tap target permanent, its activated abilities can't be activated this turn, or Koma Cosmos Serpent gains indestructible until end of turn. So that's going to be even deadlier since you can utilize those serpents in multiple ways. First off, Koma's going to be near impossible to get rid of because you can just keep sacking serpents to give it indestructible. And of course, you're going to be able to tap down your opponent's best things over and over again. But another fantastic upkeep token creator to consider is Progenitor Mimic. You can have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield except it has at the beginning of your upkeep. If this creature isn't a token, create a token that's a copy of it. So essentially you can keep cloning the same thing over and over again. Except with your commander out, you're getting 2 of those tokens instead of 1. And again, if you say clone, Avenger of Zendikar, your opponents are going to be in trouble. And speaking of clones, let's move on to our next category. Cards like Cackling Counterpart are going to be fantastic with this commander. It's an instant for 1 blue, and it says create a token that's a copy of target creature you control. And on top of that, it's got flashback for 5 blue. So for just 3 mana at instant speed, you're getting 2 copies of one of your creatures. And again, if you've got a token creator on ETB, you can get a ton of tokens right away. But it might be even deadlier to copy something like a Tendershoot Dryad and make an absurd amount of tokens on every upkeep. And again, with a card like this, you can utilize this twice because of that flashback. And paying 7 mana to get 2 tokens is a lot better than just getting 1. And speaking of 2 tokens, there's also Saheeli's Artistry. It says choose 1 or both, create a token that's a copy of target artifact, or create a token that's a copy of target creature, except it's an artifact addition to its other types. So essentially with this, you're getting 2 copies of an artifact and 2 copies of a creature. But this all can get even more out of hand with something like Second Harvest. It says for each token you control, create a token that's a copy of that permanent. So yeah, again, thanks to your commander, that's basically triple the number of tokens that you've got on the board. And again, if you're doubling up on any clone tokens that have ETBs or upkeep triggers, things are going to get ridiculous really quickly. But a really funny play is casting Clone Legion. It says for each creature target player controls, create a token that's a copy of that creature. And again, thanks to your commander, you're getting 2 copies of all those creatures instead. Now, most of the time with this deck, it's probably most beneficial to copy your own things. Again, with ETBs or upkeep triggers, you can just keep getting more and more tokens. But it's also just kind of funny to think about that when you cast this and you target one of your opponents, you're getting twice their board. They might have a sizable and very powerful army, but now your army is twice as powerful as theirs just for casting this. But of course, there are other token creation cards to consider, and one that I really want to highlight though is Spell Swindle. It says counter target spell, create X colorless treasure artifact tokens where X is that spell's converted mana cost. Something like this can generate you an absurd amount of mana out of nowhere. Again, if you're countering your opponent's 5 mana spell, usually that's just nice with 5 treasures, but with this commander in play, that's gonna be 10. So yeah, you can do some crazy powerful things with a commander like this. And speaking of commanders, let's talk about some potential commanders that will probably want to add Adrix and Nev to their own decks. And you probably recognize this one because we already went over it just a little bit ago with Coma Cosmos Serpent. And obviously each of them are great include in each other's decks for all the reasons that I mentioned before. Essentially, 2 Serpents is better than 1 each turn. Another one would probably be Zexar the Exemplary. It has whenever you cast a spell with X in its mana cost, create a 0/0 green Hydra creature token, then put X+1/1 counters on it. So essentially when you're casting your X spells, you're getting some Hydras, and now thanks to this new card, you're getting twice those Hydras. And the final one that I want to bring up that might want to consider this as well is Rollesk Apex Hybrid. Rollesk has when it enters the battlefield, put 2+1/1 counters on another target creature you control, and when it dies, proliferate, then proliferate again. A lot of Rollesk decks are built around cloning effects, so this can work perfectly in this. Again, essentially when you're casting that Cackling counterpart to copy Rollesk in order to get that death trigger, now you're getting twice as many. So essentially clone it, get a lot of counters, those clones die, and proliferate, what, 4 times? But also I just want to quickly mention some pricey considerations for you to consider when building around this commander, like Right of Replication. It says put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of target creature, but if it was kicked, put 5 of those tokens onto the battlefield instead. So yeah, 10 tokens of one of your creatures is just obnoxiously good. And of course, there's everyone's favorite Hull Breacher, which says if an opponent would draw a card except the first one they draw on each of their draw steps, instead you create a treasure token. So now basically, wheel your opponent's cards out of their hands, they lose all their cards, and you get twice as many treasures. And everyone has fun, and everyone's gonna love you. They're also gonna love you if you put even more token doublers on the field like Parallel Lives, Primal Vigor, and Doubling Season, and all these cards are incredibly expensive. But again, that's why I labeled this pricey considerations. In conclusion, I think Adrix and Nev are going to be a really popular commander. Players love creating tokens already, and players especially love doubling up on those tokens. Now you can guarantee that you're going to be able to double your tokens because you've got a commander that can do it for you. And again, although this commander doesn't have perfect protection from spells and abilities like Hexproof, it's still a good amount of protection with Ward 2. That taxing effect is usually going to be enough to deter your opponents from targeting this for quite a while. And by that point, it's going to be too late. Quandrix is supposed to be the college for math, so again, have fun doing all that math with your copies of Reefworm and those tokens and more tokens, and you see where it's going. And with that, the show has come to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thank you again, and have a good one.